Carlos was unable to move his head. The brace on his neck was connected to a wiry, box-like apparatus. He was now holding down the button to the nurse's station continuously, because his finger was getting tired and he didn't know what else to do. The room was bright as ever. The television worked perfectly. The colors of some 90s sitcom were vibrant despite their poor quality. Electricity was clearly working. He was hearing voices outside of patients and doctors, visitors and janitors. Even behind the closed door, he could at least see the shadows of footfalls. Once again in vain, he sucked in a deep breath and tried to shout. The noise from the television was terrible. He couldn't believe people outside weren't coming in to complain, yet it was clearly drowning out his voice. And that scream took the rest of his energy. What on earth was taking Ben so long? The sound distorted everything in Carlos's head. The faces on screen were made grotesque simply by the fact that they were producing this cacophony in his ears. Oh. He wasn't sure he could hear the voices outside anymore. Was it being drowned out by to Carlos, unintelligible sounds coming from the TV? It didn't seem to get louder when he dropped the remote off the bed. The faces on screen were not yelling. Their fat, tightly drawn mouths would not be screaming, even if he could parse out the words. He shouted soundlessly as he chipped a molar down to the gum. A shard of bone clattered soundlessly on his other teeth. He spit in anger and screamed uselessly at the shadow beneath the door, now stagnant. Simply not interested. Grimacing at the television that seemed to grimace back, he tried to contract his abdomen enough to peel his torso forward. He twisted over and managed to move onto his elbow. The television seemed to be howling, and the shadows beneath the door dominated the sickly whiteness in the hospital room. But somehow, the room did not become dimmer, merely less consistent. The light seemed to flicker, though nothing was happening as Carlos well knew. And then a cranky child on the show screeched, and Carlos wailed and lurched himself off the bed onto the floor, shattering the contraption around his neck. His mind ruminated on the crack that he'd heard as he fell. It could have been the brace holding his head, except he could feel blood pooling into his neck. His ears felt wet. The deafness in his mind allowed him to focus on the image of the shaking door handle, and then he couldn't see. The handle and the room appeared to him all in black and white, emanating from the television and the door. The blackness dressed in white came closer, and the black was all he saw.